Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, dear London community. This is your brother Imam Ali Jan. We're coming to you here for a very special announcement, a very special collaboration that we are undertaking with Basair Institute and their flagship program called Deenagers Den. Deenagers, as you can tell by the name, is teaching the deen to teenagers. This is a segment of our community that whichever parent I've ever spoken to, they have always expressed to me this is what we need more programming, more work in. And alhamdulillah, by the blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and by the mandate of the LMM board to create collaborations and partnerships, I'm very happy, very excited to announce that we have this partnership now with Basar Institute to bring their flagship Teenagers program to London, Ontario. This is going to be our way to provide sustainable, meaningful programming for this very underserved segment of our community. I'd like to invite Sheikh Ahmad Saleem, who is going to be leading this program. We will be supporting him, alhamdulillah, but he is the man who will be leading this program. Sheikh Ahmad, how are you doing?
Alhamdulillah, I'm doing great. Super excited. I mean, the Saturday is just around the corner, right? MashaAllah.
Alhamdulillah, it's
Alhamdulillah.
only a few days away. We're very very excited to have you
MashaAllah.
come and teach this program. Very blessed that you have committed to this, committed to driving from Toronto every Saturday.
Especially for the
Uh,
rising gas prices.
I know, honestly, right?
It's insane.
Alhamdulillah.
Yeah. Alhamdulillah.
Yeah,
So I think
alhamdulillah.
teenagers is very essential because as part of Basara Institute, what we wanted to do is we wanted to create something
Mm,
which was unique. It's not your weekend Islamic school, right?
mm,
That's very, very essential. In a recent bonfire that I did, there were kids that came, all of them, they came from super religious households and they all attended weekend Islamic schools and they were still practicing. They still had, mashallah, their faith intact. And when we asked them, I said, tell us one thing that you can take away from your weekend Islamic schools. And they said, it
mm,
did not address our needs,
mm,
right? Like that's the problem because there are questions that these kids have,
mm,
especially the society we live in,
mm,
whether they're watching Netflix or whether they are interacting with kids in school, if they're going to Islamic schools and they're still interacting with kids in malls and other spaces,
mm.
questions that need to be addressed. So
Correct.
and what ends up happening is many times the masajids and they do their best, but
Mm,
what happens is when we tell a child you must get up for Fajr,
mm,
right? It's in a Quranic reference, inference. It's our religious, command from Allah.
mm,
This kid doesn't know time management. He doesn't
mm,
know that food affects his sleep. Nobody
mm,
taught him this.
mm,
So yes, we're telling him wake up for Fajr, but we ought
mm,
to teach him that your food has a
mm,
direct impact on your sleep. True
mm.
story. Last night I had a full plate of biryani twice. It didn't go
MashaAllah.
well, right?
Mm,
With meat, and it was quite late. It was 11 o'clock. It was
mm,
very difficult for me to get up this morning. Like I
mm,
had to really struggle to get up, right? Who's
mm,
going to teach these kids? So in Teenagers Den, what we focus on is three things. We focus on
mm,
spiritual development. We focus on their personal physical development. So we
mm,
want to be able to do some, high intensity interval trainings and stuff like that, just to get them going, right? Like
mm.
get their blood flow going because that
Yeah,
is very important for that. And
yeah.
last thing, what we focus on is personal development, right?
Mm,
What to eat, how to eat, time management, sleep management. Kids on monster drinks, teenagers, seriously,
mm,
parents,
mm,
like wake up. Like
mm.
monster drink, like I take one and I'm like woo, like zapped, right? And then you go to my kids' high school and pretty much every single kid is on a monster drink, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So effects of caffeine on your life. So
Mm,
this is a holistic program,
mm,
and spiritual element is one third of it, but we understand that if the child does not grow personal development in terms of their skill sets as
mm,
well as their physical development, then spiritual
mm.
can only go so far.
Absolutely, that's awesome, mashallah. Because I think when we think of a weekend program, Islamic program in a masjid, we automatically think about a curricula. We think about
Yeah,
what subjects are taught, and all that is extremely important, and all that has its place. But I
100%.
think what you're saying is that this is a program that kind of is a prerequisite to that level, right? This is where
Yes,
you start, you build the foundation of your life, you understand what your deen is telling you about life. We discuss questions that are on our minds and leave not unsatisfied. We leave satisfied with the answers we get. And now you have a foundation with this young person who can now go and
100%.
pursue
And
further
attend those
studies.
weekend Islamic schools, and he feels
Yeah.
like, oh, great, I'm learning. Because the biggest question on their mind,
Mm,
I need to pray 5 times a day. And the child
mm,
is like, why? Right?
mm,
Sadly, most of the teachers in Islamic schools are not equipped with that training. They have the
mm,
right intentions, but they don't have the training to sit down and have sometimes a philosophical discussion, sometimes a logical discussion with that child,
mm,
to bring him to this realization that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is something very important in your life. Because
mm,
once the child gets that,
mm,
I tell parents, you are not going to have to tell them how to pray. They
mm,
will figure it out,
mm,
right?
mm.
They will beg you to go to the weekend Islamic school because they want to learn the
What
faith.
Islam?
So it's
Yeah.
it's it's like it's a segment. And what is happening is almost 95% of the people, when they come to weekend Islamic school, there's a
Mm,
massive dropout rate. Why is that?
mm,
Because
mm,
you've put somebody in calculus and they don't know arithmetic.
mm,
Simple,
mm.
right? So
Yeah.
this is arithmetic. This is
Mm,
like one, two, three, why, and we go and our philosophy is discussion.
mm,
And one of the most beautiful things, like, I had a parent today message me. She's like, "What is the curriculum?" Right? I said, "I don't know." And they're like,
mm,
"What do you mean?" I said, "Because we let the youth decide the curriculum." Right?
mm,
So the first session is we have a discussion about what they want to learn. We
mm,
collect all that data, and that's when the teachers go back
mm,
and say,
mm,
okay, this group set, these are the 7 or 8 fundamental issues that we need to address to help
mm,
them.
mm, mhm.
And then we develop that curriculum as we go.
Mm,
Right? And it's catered to their personal individual needs, rather than me picking up a
mm,
particular book and saying, this is what I'm going to teach you, which has great
mm,
merits. Don't underestimate that. It's great merits,
mm,
but it's
mm,
only great merit for a teenager who consciously wants to learn that.
mm. So we want to answer the questions that have been bugging these kids,
100%.
right? That I think maybe when we were at that age also bugged us. Like, they're kind of,
We just
bothered
shoved them
us as well. Right.
underneath the rug, right?
Right, or maybe we found answers to them later. Like, personally speaking, I had a massive struggle with the concept of God and the idea of salvation, right? Like,
Yeah.
why is salvation reserved for a specific group of people? When I say salvation, I'm talking about entering Jannah,
Akhirah.
right? And how is this just, and how is this fair? And for me, that was a very large struggle. But subhanallah, the eventually the answer that I found that actually convinced me was actually in the Quran, Surah Mulk, for example. That's where it clicked for me. But it took a while. I wish I had that opportunity to discuss this when I was, you know, 14 or
Teenager.
15, right? Where I could have then come to terms with it quicker.
Yeah.
But many people perhaps don't get that chance. Maybe that lingers, or maybe it bothers them so much that it maybe demotivates them to practice Islam and
100%.
keep up the
100%.
rituals, right?
100%. So
Yeah.
that's the idea behind this program. and
Mm,
and and we're doing it for the first 2 months, and
mm,
alhamdulillah, we had great response already from the London community. Trust
alhamdulillah.
me, you guys are better than Mississauga. all
Alhamdulillah.
all I need to tell you that, right? Like,
Mm,
so we have, I think, 9 spots left.
okay.
So for those parents who haven't registered, please do register. I guarantee you that your kids are going to be begging you to take them to this program, right? And it's
Mm,
filled with fun. So it's
mm,
it's like there's activities and there's group activities, and I make them. We have these special tools with iPads that draw stuff in the air. It's called Air Pictionary, and like
mm,
it triggers so many aspects of their brains and their development, which usual Netflix binging or gaming does not. And
mm,
that's the whole idea behind that, right? Because
mm,
there's a segment of that brain that is just like, just sit there and watch.
mm,
Right now, we
mm,
change that completely on their heads, and they're like, oh, you got to get up and draw. What do you mean? And then imagination, and you can't talk about it, you can only draw about it, but you can't see what you're drawing about. All of these things are sparking a developmental aspect in their brain. And by the way, so I come from a training and development background, and
mm,
specifically creating environments for experiential learning. That's what I did
mm,
as a profession before I became an imam and a sheikh, I transitioned. So
Hmm.
I bring that experience into this, and many
Hmm.
of them, they're like for the first time feeling this, right? We make them
Hmm.
experience,
Yeah.
elements of akhirah. you
Yeah.
you you can do that. There are tools available, right?
Yeah.
Through NLP, through reflective, through close-eyed meditations. There's so many tools, but
Hmm.
then the child feels like, oh man, this is a reality. Like I need to be really concerned about it, right? Or really
Yeah.
wake up. And
Yeah.
that's the whole idea behind that, inshallah.
Yeah. And that feeds into like the discussion about Islam. It's like the you open
100%.
up the mind so we can have a rational, real discussion, right? And
100%.
that's that's
100%.
that's really awesome. Jazakallah khair.
Inshallah. And
Alhamdulillah.
then also
So
hot chocolate.
and hot chocolate. How can we forget hot chocolate and
Yes.
croissants and stuff? That's a key. Alhamdulillah.
Yes. Yes.
Inshallah.
Alhamdulillah.
So we're starting October 31st, Saturday.
30th.
Uh, excuse me, October 30th on a Saturday we're starting, and this
Yeah.
program is for how many weeks, Sheikh Ahmed?
So it's going to go for 8 weeks. We're going to end
Eight
on
weeks.
December 18th.
December 18th.
December
Alhamdulillah.
18th. It's going to start
Yep.
at 9:30 a.m. and it will
Yep.
end sharp at 12.
Okay.
Sharp at 12. And I think it's going to be filled with a lot of fun for them
Inshallah. That's
and
awesome.
learning.
Alhamdulillah. Jazakumullah khairan. Looking forward to it.
Barakallah fik, inshallah. Assalamu
Take care.
alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Assalam. Assalam.